Welcome back to the channel, and thank you for coming back again. And of course, thank you to Lucas, who will be spilling the tea with me again about about knowledge a little bit. But we talked about this a little bit, something called creative destruction. Lucas, do you mind just expanding what you know about it a little bit with the audience?
Yeah, creative destruction. So when you hear the saying that innovate or die. Okay, so it is true. We know that if you're incrementally improving on your existing products, you'll only have a finite lifespan, right? So technology, everything happens in waves, in patterns, and more innovative companies come along and they destroy the old firms who aren't innovating. And that's what's called creative destruction. So it's a natural process that happens in the market where the more innovative, dynamic, disruptive companies come in and then they wipe out the old companies. And you think about companies, the case studies that we hear about, like Kodak and Nokia. Okay, so creative destruction is really interesting because it is actually good for the economy. And this goes back to why the government, the federal government, doesn't actually pick individual winners. They don't pick firms as winners. They pick industries that we're going to put our funds into, because even a failing company is spending money.
It's very interesting of that, because if one can imagine that someone who would, for example, enter the market of being an entrepreneur, and then they might follow the trend, or not follow the trend, but maybe develop something based on what is existing, but then turns out that actually it's towards the end of the cycle for that particular way of operating, then
Yeah.
although they will be destroyed, not destroyed, but like, part of this creative destruction. But of course, that would contribute to their whatever sector it is, contribute to the GDP.
Well, that's right. When you look at how our gross domestic product's made up, okay, a lot of it is consumption. Right? That's why they always say that recessions are caused when people panic and start to hide their money under the bed, right? Because the consumption expenditure goes down. So if you look at the way, like there's two ways to look at it. One of the ways would be to actually evaluate opportunities before giving funding, right? To make sure that, our investment's well spent. The problem is, if you've got a two-headed coin, you've got a 50% odds of correctly predicting an outcome, right? What that means is sometimes, and this is actually proven in venture capital sectors, sometimes they're better off guessing, right? Because it's really hard to predict a winning company. Okay, so the government doesn't even try. So if you look at CSIRO, you look at Innovations Connections, if you're in a particular industry and you've got the money to spend on doing R&D with a university, they'll fill out your application form, right? They're that desperate for companies to play ball with universities. So they'll fill out your application form, and they're not going to evaluate the likelihood of success of your product or service. All they care about is you've been in business for a certain amount of years, overall company's got revenue to spend, and then let's go, right? The problem is it's not actually predicting the winner that's important. It's the process of going through evaluating an opportunity. And I know this myself. Next week, I'm doing a business plan again for New Age, and people say, look, business plans, why would you bother? But that process of stepping through your thoughts sequentially is what matters.
One of the things that I noticed when we first met at the place that we were working at, let's not go in that. But one of the things that I have noticed is, because I actually have overheard of some of your classes, because my office is so close to where your classroom was.
Sure, yeah.
And what I like about your approach is that you have a 360 approach. You encourage critical thinking. I felt that it could be a generational thing, that critical thinking, or just spending a little bit of time to evaluate, is it going to work, or is it something that would make sense, might have lost over the past years.
You make a good point there. You make exactly. And one of the reasons is we're we're very cautious now of giving criticism, right? Because society will jump on us and say that,
you're cancelled.
now it's like, whatever you want to be, you can be, right? But that's just bullshit. Because we know that the failure rates, and the market doesn't care. The market is not kind. The market doesn't care. The market doesn't care if you hold hands and collaborate, right? They just care about the end goal, the performance. Can you outcompete? Can you get the job done better, cheaper, or both, right? So plenty of people go into business thinking, and particularly the first time, thinking that I have a right to succeed, because I believe in what I'm doing and I've created a vision board, and it's very problematic.
It's I think one of the funny thing about for example, the millennials like ourselves.
Yes.
I'm trying to make myself sound younger. Okay. The millennial generation, there's a lot about side hustles or starting your own businesses, and sometimes because we are passionate about what we're doing, and we unfortunately that we would turn a blind eye about things that might not be the best approach. The reason I said that is because at the beginning of my career, that I worked with a lot of like artists, art galleries, festivals, and something art related.
Yes. Good example industry. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Very creatively destructive. But what I was trying to explain to many of my clients or my or someone who needs a marketing plan or something like that is they have a great level of optimism, and which I admire, and I am inspired by them. However, sometimes when say, I think one of the conversation really stuck with me is quite about almost more than 10 years ago. I think they were saying like, oh, the Australian Council of Arts that said that the past financial year, there's 10 billion GDP that came through the creative art industry. And then I asked them, it's like, well, how many of them also include like theater, concert, and music? And it's like, oh. And then I was like, well, and how many of them are actually like circulating in the visual art sector, which is where my client was. I guess it ended up becoming quite a heartbreaking conversation to him because because the thing is, for me, because I also see my clients as my friends as well, because like, I don't want to see them not knowing what they're getting into. If you know what you're going into and you still make that decision, fine, go for it. Like, but then at least make an informed decisions. And
that's right.
Just imagine how many failed art studios out there or artists in a really bad financial position. But then they are still part of the GDP because they are.
Absolutely. Well, the sad thing is when you're starting a business, they say that it's friends, family, and fools, right? So that's your that's your first source of support and your first source of capital raising, right? You go to your family, friends, and fools. Once that runs out, you try and go the next step. But the thing is that majority of businesses that start out there will only end up, if they're successful, creating a job for themselves. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you realize that that's the expectation you should have going into starting this company. I mean, if you're giving up your 9-to-5 job and you're creating a new 9-to-5 job, of course, it might be branded your name or whatever, but you're basically just creating yourself a job. And that's what majority do. So to get that next level up where you can become like a niche leader, that's a huge step. And there's no way that that's going to happen. I mean, we all get influenced and we see the Facebooks and we see Canva and Atlassian, but those guys have done so much hard work, guys and girls, so much hard work in the background to get to where they are. None of them just rolled out a bit of a napkin and came up with a business idea and said, let's go.
Well, they might say that on their press releases.
Exactly, because that's what sells.
Yes, it is, because it's because, look, I mean, I think it's important to have a dream. And for me, I started my business, and yes, I started with my business working with a lot of friends, families, and not fools, but I mean, hey,
That's right.
they say yes to a nut job like me, so they're not. But the key thing is, for example, I think even if you ask me today, I think for me, building the right image, but at the same time, getting the right referrals from satisfied clients, it should be 50% of my promotion effort. And then the other 50 would be like, for example, advertising and such as all of those side of it. For me, I know that there's some people would put like say 70% or 90% on the advertising side. But for me, I just think that because I'm a content person, so ultimately, I think having the right repertoire and also having the right image would actually make it easier for people to say, oh, I like working with Arthur. Maybe my friend would like him too. And that's how I managed to survive.
So if we think about yours is a good example, then you know what your core capabilities are, you know what you're good at, and then you also have a point of difference in your brand that you stand out to other people. That's enough. You don't need to do too much. If you can pick one or two things that you do better than majority of the market out there, then that's where you start your business. And we all get influenced. We all want to, and I'm shocking at this, I always want to do too much. And I constantly have to rein it in and go, well, this is the part that I can do better than other people in the market. This is where I have to focus.
Well, you were trying to teach a group of students, like from what I remember, you were trying to teach a group of students while trying to get them to like try to think like, just,
like it's interesting. We could have an interesting topic about that. The TAFE sector, or let's say your diploma of business, advanced diploma of business, certificate 4 in business, they are fantastic qualifications. The problem is no domestic students want to study them. Everyone wants to go to university. So really you've got people at university. And then the problem with the university is, and I know because I've so many degrees, you're always studying up there. Like you're a first year student. You're 20 years of age, 19 years of age, and you're studying strategic management, something that you're not going to apply for at least 10 years.
Yep. Yes.
So the problem is there's all of these students at university. Half of them should be pulled out and put into the vocational education level training because that's what it's catered for. But the only students going to the VET sector are international students who just want visas to be
here. Yeah. And the other thing is because a lot of international students in the VET sectors that may be studying, for example, for the diploma of business or other diplomas, is that they may came from a background that they are not being empowered to think critically or just kind of like, ask questions.
And well, it's difficult for them. Yeah, it's difficult. That's right.
Tricky, and that's why I'm kind of circling back to our original topic last week, that the article that you wrote, what is knowledge, on your LinkedIn, which I found is like, wow, like that's why we were like, I was like, let's record a video, because I just think that, because there's such a difference between data, information, and knowledge.
Yeah, that's right.
You got to do your legwork and what you said, like, all the, I mean, I remember when I was like 19, 20 years old. I mean, I don't even know what I'm doing. I mean,
it's such a long path. And I think at the end of that article, I wrote my own experience where, like, I was, lucky enough to get into an honors degree and then get an exposure to a project in industry at the age of 22 and, an early publication. And then I got into a really good brand company, Rip Curl, for like 6 years. And during that time, I got a scholarship to start MBA and then finished MBA and experience overseas and come back. And only now am I stepping out into starting my own company. And that's after having just exited successfully a small business. And only now am I willing to do that on my own without partnering with a mentor. And I'm 42. It's a long path.
But I would say one thing though, because I think, I mean, I don't want to, okay, I am 40, okay. I hate saying that.
We got it out of you.
I know. But it's so interesting, because if I am doing what I'm doing when I was like 22 or something like that, I probably wouldn't appreciate as much.
Yeah.
So like, if I read your article when I was 20, then I'll be like, whatever. And then, but then right now that I was like, okay, I've done my legwork. And I was like, oh, that's the bit that because the thing is, this is strange because I was talking to a good friend of mine. She's 44, 45. And then we noticed that the big difference in only that with our 5 years apart, that is, because we both go through the public school system as well. So it's like during my years, reading, writing, and critical thinking were not that important.
Yeah.
Like that's already starting to shift towards the like just learn what you need to do. Like, you know, it's that kind of base that like I'm already at the beginning of that. But then I was like, wow, just imagine like now 20 years later, or the 20 years old, that like I am worried. And that's why I want to do this video, because if I want to ask you to draw the connection between creative destruction and what is knowledge, in your opinion, what do you think?
It's interesting, isn't it, when you get asked a question like that? Our brains are like databases. We have to build up. Knowledge is like the precursor for innovation, right? You can't have innovation without new knowledge. But that new knowledge doesn't have to be new to the world. You can bring something in that's new only to your firm. So we were talking about CRMs earlier. We're not going to invent our own CRM. No. Right. But that is still innovation. If we bring in that new knowledge, we implement it, and then we get some value, right? And value is measured in two ways. It's economical, which is really what matters, right? And societal, which we want to do the right thing. You know, we talk about purpose and things like that. So you've got new knowledge, implementation, creation of new value, right? So that's what it is. And that's what companies are always trying to do. The problem is if you're always just bringing in things that are new only to your firm, you're not risking producing any products that are new to the market, new to the industry, world, etc. So eventually you're going to be replaced, or what you're doing is going to be replaced. And if you look at digital marketing now, for example, 10 years ago, you would say it's a relatively niche, not niche. It's a market where you can make money, right? If you know what's going on as an agency, you can make money. My brother and I built a website yesterday with Squarespace. We built it in 4 hours, right? Some digital marketers you see on their website, they're trying to charge $1,400 for one landing page, right? Do you see the conundrum? Like that's almost bordering now on unethical because of the advancements in technology. So those players, they will be destroyed. Creative destruction will come along and knock them off, right?
I think that's interesting, because at one stage someone said to me that it was like, oh, I was made for social media marketing. I was like, I'm very glad that you think that I'm good at it. But then I started years before social media become a thing, like, you know, before digital marketing become a thing. And it is so interesting because I think, say 10 years ago, let's say 2010, digital marketing had a bit of a mystique in it. And then that image, then of course the narrative is very different now. And I think something like a disruptor like yourself, or as a new in the form of knowledge, I think it is great because it helps people to either do the best with what you got, or try to do something completely different based on what you can do. And because you're not trying to get them like, sorry.
Well, if I was going to give digital marketers advice now, like I would say that the revision to your business model, technology is always the enabler, right? But it can't be your point of difference, right? Yes. Because if you look at things like designing PowerPoint, so you've got things like beautiful.ai, you've got Canva, right? So if your whole business model relied on you knew about technology like that prior to the client, right? And then you were hiding that from the client, and that was how you were making money. You're going to be found out, because it's not like the agency is the only person that knows about this technology. As soon as it's public knowledge, your business model is destroyed. But if you're a marketer, if you're actually, the one thing that technology will not replace and AI will not replace is understanding the customer problem, right? Breaking that down into a really succinct way. Things like market research, you look at the things that AI and technology will not replace. And that's where you position your capabilities. The technology around that is just, it's an extra enabler of what you offer, but it's not your core offering.
It's like a cake and it's icing.
Yes, that's right. And that's the mistake people make. They use the icing as their point of difference, right? And we've spoken about that. The features and functionalities of technology, that's not what, customers are smart. When it comes to partying with a dollar, we are smart.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Trust me, with me, yes,
Yeah,
it is. And
yeah, yeah.
like just kind of give it another 6 months to just plan yourself properly before you
Yeah.
push money out there. Like I would never ask anyone to like do an advertising campaign or do an event before before they have their brochure ready, before people can learn
Yeah.
about who they are,
Yeah,
because
exactly. And you and I had a good conversation before. We were talking about two technologies that spring to mind right now. Okay, so you can do a video and then you can have that transcribed directly into audio, right? That's a fantastic assistance in itself, but it's not going to be enough to write a clever blog post, right? We know we've got to have the heading 1, heading 2. We've got to break it up into bullet points. It has to be a certain amount of words, and it has to, resonate us. The other one is taking pre-written articles now, and you can turn them into videos, right? Because the AI will take your transcript and it'll go, oh, here's the word innovation. Let's put a 30-second clip of innovation. It's good, but it's not good enough.
Well, I'll tell
right?
you this. I'll tell you this. Those turning transcript into videos, the one that failed actually got more views.
Right.
because
yeah.
because people find it funny, because unfortunately some people look at those videos as entertainment. And but it's true, like you said. I mean, it's like you do need that human touch, because otherwise it'll just be another piece of
so the technology is great because it can save us time, but it comes down to the skilled coach, consultant, trainer who has to apply their expertise, and that's what our clients should be paying for.
I even made that mistake myself. That I'll tell you that I'll share it with everyone. That
Sure.
I'm going to put together some time next month, not this month because there's so much going on. But anyway, next month, to really just revisit some of my article pages, because what I was trying to do is to have the video and then a transcript underneath. Now, in the ideal world, because I really want to connect with my multicultural audience, is that I would love to do some kind of like automatic translation app a little bit further down the track if they're good. But then, with the transcript, it would be very helpful to translate those videos. But most importantly, before I can do that, I need to make sure that I rearrange the words to like summarize the meaning or something like that. That's the job that I need to do. And without doing that, I would be stupid to push the video or advertise the videos.
Exactly.
But I mean, I still post about it. Like, I still post a video. But
that's right. And you hear people complaining about VAs or cheap virtual assistants not being able to write your content articles. Well, no shit. Like, if you want to write a good article that resonates with who you are and what you're trying to achieve, and it's different than whatever else is out there, because it has to be, or Google will pick it up. That's something you have to do yourself. Or,
I mean, knowledge, this is what knowledge is about. Like, this is what you need to put in the legwork.
It's complex. It's very different to information. There's all that information out there, but how do you get the right piece of information in front of the right person at the right time when they're ready? You also, like you said earlier, reading a blog post like mine 10 years ago, you may not have been ready to absorb that into knowledge. And that's the way it works. So, companies have got a big challenge on their hand. How do you manage your knowledge? How do you create communities of practice and interest in blogs and get that sharing of information? Because it's not like build it and they will come anymore. We're not impressed, or we take a lot to be impressed.
So the last recording of What is Knowledge, and this time that we talk about creative destruction. So maybe, Lucas, if we can do a very short summary to maybe even a few words of encouragement to SMEs or people or younger people who want to start their own business or something like that.
Sure. So, we looked last week the difference between data and then information and knowledge, and how hard it is to accumulate knowledge, particularly that tacit knowledge, which is only available inside, somebody's head. It can't be written down. So you get that through mentor-mentee relationships, apprenticeships, things like that. Also, we spoke about evaluating opportunities. So if you are going to start a business, give yourself the best chance of success. Don't just dive into it. Do an opportunity evaluation. Sure, we know that flipping a coin, you've got 50% chances correctly predicting an outcome. Let's get that up higher. Let's get that to 75%. That gives us the best chance possible of succeeding. And know that it takes time. So what if you're entering into a course now and you're thinking, oh, I can't possibly put aside a year of my life? It's like, do it. Because if you don't do it, you'll regret it later. You have to keep stacking capabilities on capabilities to be able to succeed.
And sometimes it's not just about what you know and what your diploma or certificates say about you. It's about what you learn along the way. I would
That's right.
Yeah, so I would actually, oh geez, I've forgotten the name of the movie. It was one of the movie with Michelle Pfeiffer in it, and she was a teacher, and she was in this really rough school, and there was a line that I remember, I don't know why, but all these years later, but knowledge and information are like building your muscles, and you do need to keep working on it. But then once you get to a point, then nobody can hurt you. And
and don't be scared to spend on your learning too. One of the things that if your business does have some small success, people then look to invest in shares, etc. But to get that exponential growth, keep investing in yourself, in your team, in learning more. Okay, it might reduce the bottom line now, but eventually you'll break through and you'll have success above others.
Well, that there's a dip
somewhere,
because unfortunately it is what it is. Even if you're the most prepared person, there will still be a dip before it comes up. But you know, I mean, just as a word of encouragement, it will get there, but you got to be realistic.
Yep, that's right. You'll get there. You'll get there. Be patient. Choose the right people to partner with. Don't try and do it all on your own. Advice is always, getting good advice is priceless. So if we can help you in any way, we will.
Speaking of good advice, I would say that I think I would personally recommend that people to come to you for advice. So how can people find you?
Right, yeah. The only social media I use is LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn. We'll drop that in the footer, or just shoot me an email, Lucas, Lucas, @newledge, newledge.io. Be great to talk with you.
Absolutely. And of course, Lucas, thank you so much for making this little special treatment for about knowledge and creative destruction. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoy it, please consider watching another one. And of course, if you or yourself that might be benefit in what Lucas is doing, reach out to him on LinkedIn, send him an email, start a conversation, for crying out loud. And of course, thank you for your time. Thank you, Lucas. And I hope everyone have a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Bye.